campaign hasn't even officially begun, but that's not stopping parties from digging up information on their opponents. For the second time in the past few weeks, a Liberal minister has tweeted an older video of Conservative Leader Andrew Scheer. This time, Finance Minister Bill Morneau tweeted this video of Mr. Scheer from his time as a leadership candidate in 2016. Take a look.
When it comes to making tough decisions and cuts, I do agree that's very important, but we also have to be very, very careful about how we communicate that to people. We do have to win the next election in 2019, and there are examples when Conservative parties go in and have a very hard-edged tone to it. We can make the case for spending cuts, absolutely.
Morneau went on to tweet a comparison of Scheer's comments to Ontario Premier Doug Ford. Bill Morneau is the Minister of Finance. He joins us now from Toronto. Hi, Minister Morneau. Nice to see you again. Thanks for making time.
It's good to be on your show.
Minister, I want to start off and ask you about the video of Mr. Scheer that you tweeted earlier today. In it, Mr. Scheer is essentially saying that his party has to be careful with how they communicate their ideas, especially where spending is concerned. What exactly do you take issue with it?
I don't think there's much surprise here, Vashi. I mean, what we're hearing from Andrew Scheer is that they have the intent of making cuts and that they're going to try to communicate that in some way so that people don't understand what their motivations are. I think it's very much along the lines of what we've seen in Ontario with Doug Ford, where they didn't really talk much about cuts, but after the election, we saw that there were significant cuts. I think it's just a demonstration of what we're going to see through the Conservatives.
To be fair, are you making a bit of a leap? I'm going to read part of what he says in the video. When it comes to making tough decisions and cuts, I do agree that it's very important, but we also have to be very, very careful how we communicate that to people. We do have to win the next election in 2019, and there are examples when Conservative parties go in and have a very hard-edged tone to it. We can make the case for spending cuts, absolutely. How there is, I mean, you're alleging that they're purposefully going to mislead people. How is he saying that?
Well, Vashi, if you take a look at what he said that they are absolutely going to make the case for cuts, but they need to be very careful about how they communicate it. So we're just trying to illustrate for Canadians that they have a choice. They're going to have a choice between the Liberal government, which is very clearly invested and said, you know, we've got a very good fiscal situation, we should invest in behalf of Canadians, and Andrew Scheer and the Conservatives, which have, to be fair, over the last 4 years, time after time after time, argued for cuts, time after time, not voted for the places where we've made investments. And now they're saying that that's in fact their objective, but they're going to be very careful about how they communicate that. So I take that exactly at face value. They're going to be looking to make cuts.
Which cuts specifically, though, are you referring to? Like, have they made specific promises that you're telling Canadians this amounts to very big cuts?
Well, I think, in fact, Vashi, that is exactly the question. The question is, if you're talking about the need to make cuts and you're talking about communicating it very clearly, then you're actually not showing your cards. You're not showing your agenda. What we saw with Doug Ford was that they didn't talk about exactly where they would make cuts. In fact, they came out and then we saw them come out in healthcare, we saw them come out in education, we saw them come out in places that actually really impacted people and families. So I can't articulate for you exactly where Andrew Scheer is going to make the cuts. What I can say is they have an agenda. Their agenda is to make cuts. Their agenda is to do that in a way that is not going to be fully communicated, and it's not really a surprise.
But you're saying that you're saying that you can't articulate what they're going to do, but yet you're telling Canadians to be afraid of it.
Well, I'm saying, in fact, exactly that when you have a direct quote from someone saying that I'm going to absolutely be in support of cuts, but we're going to be very careful about how we communicate that. And then I'm drawing the analogy right now with you to say that is what we saw in Ontario with Doug Ford and the Conservatives here, where they didn't talk about exactly where the cuts were, and they ended up making cuts. And whether you were someone who was worried about health care in Ontario, if you were a senior that was traveling outside of the country, or whether you're worried about legal aid to people who have real challenges getting access to supports they need, you found yourself in a situation that was not articulated during the campaign. That's the concern. We have been pretty clear. We've said that we want to make investments in Canadians' future. It's consistent with what we've done over the last 4 years. We know people are still feeling those anxieties around affordability, so we're going to keep investing, using our strong financial situation to support Canadians. They're going to take an opposite approach.
Will your party's platform, Minister, include any promise to balance the budget?
Vashi, we've been pretty clear that when we've got such a strong fiscal situation, that we need to invest to make sure that Canadians are getting the support they need. We know that we can do that in a way that is fiscally responsible. So I've been really clear all the way through that if we can keep investing, but we can reduce the debt as a function of our overall economy each and every year, which is what we've done, that is being very fiscally responsible. And we're, of course, when you look at whether it's the IMF or the World Bank or the OECD, they're actually looking at the approach that Canada's taking, saying this is the responsible approach to managing in turbulent times, in times where we're seeing challenges around the world. We're using our fiscal position to our advantage. And by the way, that's going to advantage Canadians because we're supporting them by doing that.
With respect, Minister, that didn't answer the question about whether or not there would be a specific promise to balance the budget in this platform. I take your point. Am I to gather from that as long as debt to GDP is decreasing, that deficit will not be part of your platform, part of your promises?
What you should take, Vashi, is that we are going to continue to do what we've been doing. So being fiscally responsible, focusing on how we can continue to reduce the debt as a function of our overall economy, that does demonstrate that fiscal responsibility. We start from a position of good fortune in the sense of our balance sheet being strong, and we need to use that to support Canadians. So we are not going to be the party that is looking towards cuts. We're going to be the ones that are looking towards investments on behalf of Canadians. And we know that we can do that in a fiscally responsible way. That will, and it continues to be our approach.
With respect, that again didn't answer the question about whether or not there'll be anything in this platform. I asked because in the last election in 2015, there was a specific promise where the deficit was concerned to balance the budget by 2019. Obviously, as we sit here and talk, we know that you've been asked many times, by myself included, why that promise was broken. Will there be any, I'm just asking without characterization, will there be a promise made in this platform where the deficit is concerned, or will that not be a part of your party's platform?
We will be making some commitments during the course of our campaign. I can tell you that one of the principles that we will maintain is that we can be fiscally responsible by reducing the debt as a function of our GDP over time. So that you will see as a continuing principle, and you will see us present to Canadians a platform that tells them that we're going to continue to invest in their opportunities for themselves and their families. And we do believe there will be a choice to be made between that approach to investing and the approach that I put out in that video today from Andrew Scheer, which is talking about cuts. And we think that's an ideological approach that he's not only going to take, but is going to be very careful about how he communicates it so that people might not see it in the same way that we saw happened in Ontario with Doug Ford.
Before I let you go, Minister, I do want to ask you about TMX. The Federal Court of Appeal rendered a decision last week to permit 6 challenges against the federal cabinet's decision to approve the pipeline expansion to go ahead. The court said that your government didn't file a defense at the time. Why not?
If I go back to principles on that one, Vashi, we were told previously that we needed to find a way to make sure that we meaningfully engage with Indigenous peoples on this project and that we looked at the challenges. We believe we did that in a very robust way. We've gotten to the stage where we made our decision, and we will defend whatever we need to defend in order to ensure that this project goes forward. The way we're going to do that is the way that we think is most appropriate. You've seen our approach. The project is moving forward. We're pleased with that, and we will continue to make sure that we can get our resources to international markets.
Yeah, and Minister, I totally understand that your government feels that it has a significant defense where the challenges themselves are concerned, that you feel like the consultation that was done was meaningful. I'm just wondering, I still don't understand why that defense wasn't filed at the time that these challenges initially were. I mean, so that the judge could use that information to decide whether or not they should go forward.
Well, Vashi, there'll be more to come in terms of legal approaches that probably aren't going to be a subject for me to debate here. What I can tell you is that we feel we went through this process in a very rigorous way so that we can defend what we believe is a project that's in the best interests of Canada, and we'll continue to defend that project.
I was just asking, not so much from a legal perspective, but your government has faced accusations that you might not defend the project to the degree that you're saying it has, right? Critics will say, do they really believe in this project? Do they really want it to go forward? And the fact that the lower court had already said that the meaningful nature of those consultations was a question raises a question about whether or why you wouldn't file that defense initially. And I still have yet, I asked Minister Sohi last week, and there was no specific answer given as to why you're waiting until these 6 challenges have gone ahead.
Well, Vashi, I think that if the question is, are we going to continue to defend this project, which we think is in the best interest of Canada, the answer is yes. People will have a different point of view on what the right way to do that is. You know that I was very engaged in the decision to move forward in this project, to purchase it. Of course, once we got the Court of Appeal decision, I was also involved in the decision on how we could make sure that we meaningfully consulted and dealt with any issues. We've gone through all that process. So what I can say is that our goal of making sure that we get our resources to international markets continues to be the goal. We believe this project allows us to have a cost-effective and safe approach for doing that. And at the same time, we recognize that we need to continue to think about how we manage our climate change impacts over the long term. And that's why we've set a price on pollution is so important. These things, from our standpoint, do go together. And we'll continue to rigorously defend both of those initiatives as being important for us long term.
All right, I'm out of time. I'll leave it there. Thank you very much, Minister Morneau. Appreciate you joining us.
Thanks very much.
Hi, I'm Vashi Capellos, host of Power in Politics. See more of our show by subscribing to the CBC News channel or click the link for another video. Thanks for watching.